Friends, some mistakes are not made deliberately. They are made out of curiosity. At first, it seems like just wanting to know a secret to gain power or to have an experience that ordinary people cannot have. But some doors once opened do not close again, or if they do, they take a lot with them. Today, the incident I am sharing is of a young man who, just out of interest, touched something, but later understood that it is better to stay away from some things than to know them. This incident was sent to me by a brother living near Sahaval, and he specifically wrote that people should not take this as a story but as a lesson. He ended with a sentence: "I wanted to become powerful, but what came to me first broke my pride, then awakened my fear forever." My name is Nabil, and I live in a city near Sahaval. What I am about to tell you is that part of my life which still makes my heart heavy when I remember it. This is not something I heard from someone else, nor something taken from a book. I did what I did of my own free will, and I suffered what I suffered by myself. That is why, at the very beginning, I will tell the listeners, do not touch such things out of interest, power, or spiritual experience. If there is anything in them, a person is not capable of bearing its burden. Since childhood, I had an unusual interest in ghosts, jinn, shadows, and hidden things. Like ordinary children, I was afraid of the dark, but even while being afraid, I was drawn toward these things. The village, the city, the neighborhood, the mosque, the cemetery, the words of elders, all of this was not just stories for me. I wanted to know what was behind them. There was a strange stubbornness inside me that if all this really existed, then I would understand it, see it, and perhaps even control it. This same stubbornness later became my biggest mistake. For a long time, I listened to different people, someone about amulets, someone about jinn, someone about spiritual practices. During those days, I heard about the concept of a Qareen, a spiritual companion. At first, it seemed very unreal to me, but the more I heard, the more my interest grew. It was said that if a person controls his Qareen, he is no longer an ordinary person. Many of his tasks become easier. He gets help that others do not, and he reaches a kind of hidden power. Now, hearing all this, my curiosity turned into obsession. I was not thinking about whether it was right or wrong, halal or haram. Only one thought was in my mind: I have to do this and see it. I gathered information about this practice with great effort. I talked to one person, then another, then a third. No one told me completely, but enough became clear. It is not easy. You need a deserted place, patience, continuity, and above all, courage. The practice was long, 41 days. In the beginning, I myself thought many times about giving it up, but inside was the stubbornness that if I started, I would complete it. The place where I would go to perform this practice was a deserted spot, away from the city, where no one liked to go after evening. I would sit there at night. The method was to sit facing a wall, with a lamp lit behind me so that my shadow would fall clearly on the wall in front. Then I had to fix my gaze on the chest of that same shadow and recite certain specific words. I will not write those words or the sequence here, because my purpose is not to show anyone this path, but to warn them of its harm. The first days were difficult but not unusual. Loneliness, fear, silence, the sound of my own breath and my own shadow on the wall. When a person stares at the same thing continuously, the mind itself plays tricks. For the first 10 to 12 days, I thought everything was psychological. Sometimes the shadow looked bigger, sometimes smaller. Sometimes the lamp flickered and the shadow trembled. But I would convince myself that everything was normal. But as the days passed, a strange change began to come over me. I started becoming silent even during the day, and my conversations with people decreased. My mind remained mostly focused on the night. I would wait for the night to come so I could go and sit there. Around the 22nd day, the first thing happened that placed true fear in my heart. I was sitting as usual. The lamp was burning behind me. My eyes were on the shadow on the wall. I was not supposed to move, just remain silent and recite. After some time, I felt a strange restlessness. At first, I thought the shadow was moving because of my breath or the flickering of the light. But the very next moment, I understood that this was not ordinary movement. I was sitting still, but on the wall my shadow seemed to be breathing in its place. Then the line of its shoulders changed. Then there was a slight jerk near its neck. At that moment I was severely frightened, but I had heard before that such things could happen in between. If a person stops out of fear at those stages, he could suffer harm. I controlled myself and kept reciting. That night when I returned, I could not sleep the whole night. What I had seen could not be dismissed as an illusion. I kept asking myself whether it was a trick of the light, whether I had misunderstood something while blinking. But my heart was not ready to accept it. Still, the next night I went again. After that, that movement appeared from time to time, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it kept happening. I had accepted that this was no longer just my shadow. During that time, a strange conflict was going on inside me. On one hand, fear was increasing. On the other, a strange joy that perhaps I was really getting closer to that practice. I did not tell anyone. I would dismiss family members with ordinary explanations, but inside I was counting every day. Time passed, and finally that stage came where I began to consider myself successful. 40 days had passed. Now only the last day remained. According to what I had heard, this was the most dangerous day. This was the stage where either the person completes the practice or everything turns against him. On the 41st day, I went more prepared than before. There was happiness in my heart, but underneath that happiness was also a heavy pressure. To be honest, that night I kept thinking that if I succeeded, my life would change. I would not remain like ordinary people. Now, when I think about that thought, I feel both shame and regret because there was both pride and ignorance in it. I lit the lamp, sat in my place, and began the practice as usual. In the beginning, everything was the same as on the previous night's silence, the wall, the shadow, and my voice. Then slowly those things began to happen that even now, when I remember them, my body goes cold. My shadow began to rise from the wall. I am saying this in full consciousness. That shadowy form spread on the wall, which I had been seeing for 40 days, slowly began to separate from its real shape. First, its edges moved. Then it began to feel as if it was at some distance from the wall, as if ink was spilling out of the wall. I did not dare move from my place. My throat had gone dry. My heart was beating fast, but despite that I kept reciting. Within moments, that black shadow became clearer. Then its color began to change. This is not easy to describe, but I clearly felt that the blackness was turning into a reddish hue like fire burning in darkness. After that, its height began to grow. It was no longer a shape spread on the wall, but began to stand like a presence in front. I estimate that its height became about 8 feet. Its head grew sharper toward the top. Then I saw 2 large protrusions on it like horns. At that moment, for the first time, I felt that I had truly touched something very dangerous, but I still did not stop. When my recitation was complete, that presence slowly came closer to me. I was sitting still. Because of its presence, the atmosphere around became heavy. This was not just fear, it was like a physical burden. Then, in a heavy voice, it said, "You have achieved me. Now I will obey your every command." That voice was not human, but it was clear. There was no anger in it, but no gentleness either. Despite it, I felt a strange joy along with the fear. After all these days of effort, I felt that I had succeeded. But right there, I made my second mistake. I said to it, "Become a Muslim." Hearing this, it let out such a scream that even today I cannot describe it. That voice seemed to come from neither near nor far, but from all 4 sides at once, and then that presence disappeared in an instant. I later came to know that according to the practice, at that stage the person should have remained completely silent and cautious. But at that time, I was intoxicated with my own success. I did not think about who I was talking to and in what tone. That night I returned home. But inside was restlessness. My heart was saying that something was not right. When I lay down to sleep, first I heard ordinary sounds, as if someone was walking outside the room. I thought perhaps someone from the family was awake. Then after a while the sounds became clearer. the sound of soft footsteps walking. I sat up but saw nothing. I convinced myself that after so many days of practice, it was normal for the mind to be affected. I lay down again. Not even a few minutes had passed when all the utensils in the house began falling loudly. This was not the sound of one or two utensils. It was as if someone had emptied an entire cupboard. At the same time, the whole house began to shake. Such a tremor was felt in the walls as if a small earthquake had struck. I sat up in panic. The place where I was staying at that time had no one living nearby. No animals, no such house where some mischievous person could be doing all this. I was still trying to understand when a voice was heard. "You have done wrong. You have done wrong." These words came repeatedly from different directions, but at the same moment. In that voice, I felt the heavy presence of that being. My heart sank. I immediately realized that matters had gone wrong. Still, perhaps out of pride, perhaps foolishness, perhaps the feeling that now it was under my control, I called out to it. I thought it would come when I called, and I would command it. A shape began to form in the darkness, but it was not fully clear. The next moment it appeared in front of me with a jerk. It said, "I am your Qareen, but you did not call me. I came myself." Saying this, it lifted me into the air without even touching me. I swear that no hand touched my body, but I rose from my place. The next moment, I was hit against the wall so hard that my breath stopped. After that one blow, I do not remember anything. When I opened my eyes, I was in my home. My family members were standing around me. There was panic on their faces. My body was broken, head pain, chest heavy. As soon as full consciousness returned, I told them everything. They listened to me, and from the seriousness on their faces at that time, I understood that they did not consider it my illusion. That evening, it was decided that I should immediately be taken to a spiritual healer. Otherwise, matters could get out of hand. That healer, after hearing my account, became angry. He said, "You have touched something that people only mention with extreme caution, and the biggest mistake was that during the practice, your continuity broke for a moment. That is what it took advantage of. Now it will not leave you easily." He said that now there was only one way the practice would have to be done again, but this time under his supervision and protection. A protective circle would be made, certain words would be given, and he himself would be part of the practice. But there was a catch. I asked him if this was necessary, if there was no other way. He said, "Now there is no way back. You have opened the door. Either close it or go inside it." Those words settled in my heart. The next day he began preparations. He selected the same place where I used to sit earlier, but this time a circle was drawn around it. He strictly instructed me not to step out of that circle, no matter what happened. He said, "Whatever appears, whatever sound comes, whatever you feel, just continue your recitation. Do not stop. Do not answer." He also said that this time the practice would not be 41 days, but 18 days. However, the danger would not be less, but greater, because this time the thing was angrier. I accepted his words because I had no other choice. The practice began again. The first 3 days I spent only with fear. I was no longer the same as before. In the early days there was curiosity, now there was only fear. I felt every moment as if someone was standing outside my circle. Sometimes I would feel breathing behind me, even though there was no one there. Many times it felt as if someone had come close to my shoulder and looked. But I remembered the healer's words and kept my eyes only on the wall. From the 6th or 7th day, that same condition started again, but this time it was more intense. My shadow began to move more clearly than before. The difference was that now I knew what it was, so the fear had multiplied many times over. One night I was sitting when I saw that my shadow had separated from the wall and was standing outside the circle. Its head was slightly bowed, as if it was looking at me. I did not look away, but my heart was in such a state that if I had relaxed even for a moment, perhaps the same thing would have happened again. During that time, one thing began to be felt. Sometimes 2 shadows were visible outside the circle. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but it kept happening. One shadow was the one I had seen before, and the other was something different, larger, heavier, and its presence would put the atmosphere under pressure. When I told the healer about it, he only said, "Help is coming from the other side. Be silent and continue the practice." After that, I stopped asking questions. Time passed. Every day was a trial for me. No proper sleep, no peace, no desire to talk to anyone. My family was with me, but even they could do nothing. Everything depended on that practice. Finally, that day arrived, the 18th day. I was more cautious than ever before. There was a strange peace in my heart and also fear. I knew that today would be the decision. I sat inside the circle, lit the lamp, and began reciting. Within a short time, that same state began. But this time, everything happened very quickly. My shadow separated from the wall, but along with it, another light appeared. This light was not like a shadow, it was a faint white light that slowly began to take shape. For the first time, I saw something forming in this way. That presence was completely different from the shadow. There was no redness in it, no heaviness. Instead, there was a strange power, silent, but a voice could be felt. Within moments, it took full form. I cannot guess how tall it was, but it seemed even taller than the first shadow. Its presence changed the entire atmosphere. As soon as my recitation was complete, it looked at me and asked in a heavy voice, "Where is it?" I remained silent for a few moments. Then I pointed to the same place where the first thing had appeared to me. Hearing this, that presence disappeared in an instant. The healer also recited something from outside the circle and raised his hand, as if freeing someone. After that, what happened I did not see with my own eyes, but I certainly felt it. A jolt was felt in the ground as if something had struck far away. Then a strange wave passed through the air. A few seconds later, a loud sound was heard, as if something had been thrown away. Then silence. After some time, that same luminous presence returned. This time, there was a strange intensity in it, as if it had come back from a battle. It said, "It is finished, but you made a great mistake." I remained silent. It said to take a creature out of its world and use it for yourself. This is not a game. You caused it pain, so it became your enemy. Then it looked at the healer and said, "Bring the bottle." The healer immediately took out a glass bottle from his belongings, neither very large nor very small. That presence seemed to take something in its hand, though nothing was visible there. Then it poured something into the bottle like ash and closed it. The next moment, it swallowed that bottle itself. I and my family members were left stunned. Then it spoke its final words. "Remember, not everything is meant to be achieved. Some things are better from a distance." Saying this, it disappeared. After that, a strange silence fell in the room. That heaviness which had been with me for many days suddenly vanished. I remained sitting there, not knowing whether to be happy or terrified. The healer came and took me out of the circle and said, "You have been saved, but never repeat what you did." After that, my life slowly began to return to normal, but one thing changed forever. I never again tried to go near any such practice. No curiosity remained, no interest. Only one feeling remained, that some doors are not meant for humans. Even today, sometimes in the silence of the night, I remember that moment when my own shadow separated from me. And I think only one thing: if I had not been saved that day, where would I be? The second story begins now. This is a childhood memory from someone who grew up in Rawalpindi, in an old ancestral haveli. My name is Rizwan, and I belong to Rawalpindi. Today I am going to tell you an incident from my childhood. This incident is about 24 to 25 years old, but its effects are still fresh in my memory. I am grown up now, living my life. But there are some nights when suddenly old sounds start being heard again, even if they are not real. We had an old haveli in Rawalpindi. The old-style single-story, 4 large rooms in a row, an open courtyard, a tree in the courtyard, and a veranda opening toward the street outside. Along with that veranda, a new sitting room had been built, which was constructed before my birth. The family members used to say that where that sitting room was built, there used to be a ruined structure before. It was demolished and new construction was done. Sometimes in the elders' conversations, it would also come up that that place was not right before, meaning some unusual things used to happen there. But our generation had not seen anything with their own eyes, so we never took those matters seriously. The door of our sitting room opened toward a straight street. After some distance, the street narrowed, and at the end were the remains of some old collapsed houses' ruins. As children, we only knew that no one lived there. After evening, we were not supposed to go there to play, and if the mention of that place came up in elders' speech, it was better to stay silent. Later, we came to know that before our birth, a family used to live there. They had 5 daughters. One of those girls was affected by something. At first, the family thought it was an ordinary illness. Then when the matter worsened, people investigated, and what came to light spread fear in our neighborhood. It was said that a witch was with that girl, and she herself would say, "We are 7 sisters, we will not leave her." I am narrating this not from my own observation, but as a tradition heard from elders and neighbors. But in our area, this matter was so common that no one considered it just a story. It was said that the girl eventually died. Then the same effect attached itself to her 2 sisters. My grandfather knew an elder who treated such matters through spiritual means. Those people took their daughter to him. Treatment was done and the girl found peace. Later, those sisters got married. The brothers also settled in their own homes, and that entire family moved away. Their house crumbled with time and became complete ruins. But the elders of the neighborhood said that what was there did not leave with the family. About 40 to 50 feet from those ruins was a berry tree. It was also famous that the shadow of those same things was in that tree. A young man from the neighborhood was returning from somewhere at night. On the way, he felt the need to relieve himself. He did so under that berry tree. His house was only a few steps away. People say that he barely reached his doorstep. 1 foot was inside the house. The other was still outside when he fell and passed away. When he was given a ritual bath, a large mark was found on his waist. I cannot verify that incident with proof, but this event is narrated in our house as if everyone knows it was the work of those same things. As children, we would hear these stories and get scared, then forget them in playing. The real incident happened later. I mentioned that 4 brothers slept in that sitting room. I was the youngest. I had a separate cot. At some distance, another brother slept on a cot. My 2 elder brothers slept on a double bed. My cot was not right next to the bed, but close enough that if someone jumped, they would land directly on the bed. Between them was just enough space to remove shoes. The door faced the outside street, and at night, if for any reason the eyes opened, one could immediately sense whether there was complete silence outside or not. One night we were asleep as usual. I do not remember the exact time, but it was the middle of the night. Suddenly, my eyes opened to a sound that I can never forget. It was a woman's laughter, but not a human laugh. I can tell this difference not from today's understanding, but from the feeling of that time. Even as a child, I immediately felt that this sound was not right. There was no joy in it, no ordinary noise, no neighborhood talk. It was long, drawn out, heavy, and such that it would send a chill through the body. As if someone was standing very close, not far away, and the whole street was filled with that laughter. When my eyes opened, my heart was pounding. For a few moments I could not understand what had happened. Then as soon as that laughter was heard again, I jumped onto my elder brother's bed. Even today, when I think about it, it seems that I jumped in a way to save my life. I shook my eldest brother. He was about 10 to 12 years older than me. I said, "Brother, what is that sound?" He also woke up completely. I understood from his face at that time that he was not taking the matter lightly either. But he did not want to scare me. He said, "Nothing, there must be a function in the opposite house and women are laughing." I was a child, but I understood enough to know that this was not laughter from any function. I immediately said, "Brother, this is the voice of one woman and it is very strange." He silenced me, made me lie down next to him and told me to sleep. But his voice did not have the confidence that ordinary talk has. I still remember that he was reciting something under his breath, meaning he was outwardly calming me down, but inwardly he was also frightened. That laughter continued at intervals for some time. Every time it seemed like it had stopped, it would echo again. I had buried myself under the sheet, clinging to my brother, my body trembling. After so many years, if I recall that moment, the first thing that comes to mind is not the sound but the heartbeat in my chest, as if it would burst out. Then suddenly, that laughter turned into crying. This part was perhaps more terrifying than the laughter, because the laughter had a terror in it, but the crying had such sadness that seemed unnatural, as if someone was crying with a very old sorrow, a long, broken voice. I was a child, but the burden in that crying could be felt. She was not crying like any ordinary woman of the neighborhood, but as if someone had not cried for a very long time and was now releasing it all at once. My brother kept reciting, but this time he did not even try to comfort me. Perhaps even he had now realized that this was not an ordinary matter. After some time, the crying also stopped. I thought now there would be peace, but after that the sound of a flute began. I am connected to music, have heard many tunes over the years, but to this day I have never heard such a flute. I was a child at that time, so I could not understand the tune clearly, but its feeling remained in my heart. It was neither pleasant, nor celebratory, nor ordinary bazaar-like. It was very sad, very desolate, and strangely silent. It seemed as if someone was not just playing a tune, but an old lament was flowing with the wind. That sound deepened my fear even more. I did not even ask my brother because now I did not have the courage to ask questions. I just clung to him and wished for morning to come. Then another thing started. It sounded like a stampede of buffaloes outside. This may sound strange, but we both felt the same thing. The continuous sound of heavy footsteps, as if not one but many large things were running together. Our street was very narrow, barely one buffalo could pass through straight. But at that time, the noise was like an open field. Thud, 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 the sound of footsteps was so fast that the atmosphere seemed to shake. That noise seemed both close and spreading. I held my brother's sheet even tighter. My throat was dry. My body was drenched in sweat. I wanted to take Allah's name, but I did not have the courage that adults have. All I remember is that my brother kept reciting something continuously. This sequence continued for a long time. Then the buffalo-like noise became loud, then softer, then less, and then as if it had moved far away. Shortly after that, the call for the morning prayer was heard. As soon as the voice of Allahu Akbar came, everything stopped. No laughter, no crying, no flute, and no stampede. In an instant, it was as if someone had closed the door of the night. We both stayed awake for a long time. Then I do not know when we fell asleep. In the morning, I told everyone what had happened at night. The family listened to me, but obviously they did not want to scare me further. They said, "It was nothing. It must have been your imagination, or there was some noise in the street, or you were just frightened." At that time, I was also young. Slowly, the incident faded from my mind, not forgotten but suppressed. Then after some time, another incident happened, and this time it was not just a sound. A child claimed to have seen that thing. Our haveli was large, and our family was not large enough to use all the rooms. 2 rooms in the sitting room were enough for us. The rest remained empty, so a wall was built in the middle and half the portion was rented out. After some time, a family came to live there. They had a daughter about my age. She would play with us and visit us. It was Ramadan, the winter Ramadan. It was the time of Sehri. In the neighborhood, there was movement even in the last part of the night. People were going to get milk. Someone was bringing bread from the tandoor. Someone was filling water. That night it was around 2:30 a.m. My mother was preparing Sehri. We younger siblings were all awake. Then a loud scream was heard. It was not an ordinary scream. It was as if the whole neighborhood had suddenly woken up. The elders immediately ran outside. We were kept inside. But after a few moments, it became known that the same girl from our tenants had been found unconscious in the street. Her mother had sent her to get milk, and she had fallen near the door of our sitting room. She was brought home. For a long time she did not regain consciousness. When she did, she would scream loudly and say only one word, "Bear, bear, bear." Then she would faint again. This happened not once but repeatedly, some consciousness, then screaming, then unconsciousness. This sequence continued not just that night but for the next 2 or 3 days in some form. The family tried to comfort her, but she was not in a condition to tell everything. About a week later, when she had somewhat recovered, what she told was repeated in our house for a long time in hushed voices. She said that she was going to get milk with a bucket. There was very little light in the street, just faint light from some houses. When she reached in front of our sitting room door, she felt as if someone was standing ahead. At first, she thought it was an animal or a person. But then that thing moved. She said it was not a human. It was a bear-like shape, its whole body covered in long black hair. The face was not clear, but the eyes were red. That thing was slowly moving toward her. She said its hands were long, nails very large like claws, and its teeth, she could not describe them in words. She just kept repeating that it was coming to eat her. She was trembling as she said this. She said that as soon as it came close, her body gave way. She screamed and fell. The neighbors came out, there was noise, and the thing disappeared. No one else saw it, only that child. After this incident, the atmosphere of that house changed. What had previously been limited to elders was now before us in the form of reality. These were no longer just old stories. Now there was a living example before us. The tenants stayed for a few more days, but they were not the same as before. The doors were closed early at night. The girl was not left alone. Her mother often stayed awake at night, and the girl would be frightened as soon as evening fell. Going into the dark was out of the question. She would not even go near the sitting room door. Then one day, they vacated the house. No quarrel, no excuse, they just left. A few years passed. Those ruins which were mentioned earlier were finally demolished. New houses were built there, small units. People thought now everything would be fine. New construction would end the old matters. In the beginning, it seemed that everything was normal. A family came to live there, but not many days had passed when they too moved away. They did not say anything openly, but word spread in the neighborhood that something unusual had happened with them too. Sounds at night, someone walking, a shadow near the door, and once they too saw something. They could not stay long either. After that, that house remained empty for a long time. Whoever came stayed a few days and then left. I had convinced myself that perhaps it was just childhood fear or a one-time incident. But the truth is that that night remained somewhere inside me. Time passed. We grew up. Life moved on. I became busy with my studies and work. We later moved from that haveli as well. But some things leave not from a place but from inside a person. Even today, sometimes at night when there is complete silence, I feel that same feeling as if a sound is about to come. First a faint silence, then as if someone starts laughing from a distance, and I immediately open my eyes. I have never heard that voice again the way I heard it that night, but its fear is still the same. The third story begins now, a story connected to my grandmother's house. I cannot reveal my name for personal reasons. This is all connected to my grandmother's house, a village house with an open courtyard, a sitting room on one side, and a veranda beside it. Since childhood, I had heard something or the other about that place, especially about my aunt, that she was affected by jinn. But the family would say that they do not cause harm. Everyone just says one thing. Whoever sleeps there without praying, they make their presence felt. I would hear these things and nod, not taking them too seriously. An incident was later told to me by my mother. A guest stayed there one night. He did not pray the evening prayer. When he tried to sleep, the light in the sitting room kept turning on by itself. He would turn it off, and after a while it would turn on again. Then suddenly, someone grabbed his cot from below and shook it so hard that he immediately got up and left that place at night itself. Even after hearing all this, I did not pay much attention. Then an incident happened with my uncle. He was sleeping on the roof. In the middle of the night his eyes opened and he saw many small shadows moving around his cot. They were not in snake form, but their movement was clear. Sometimes someone would come close to his hair, sometimes try to pull from the side of his feet. My uncle immediately came downstairs, prayed, and then slept below. After that, nothing happened to him. I kept hearing these incidents, but until something happened to me, I did not fully believe them. This was 5 years ago. I was working at my uncle's clinic alongside college. On weekends, I would often stay at his house, which was near my grandmother's house. At that time, I did not have a phone. I had a tablet on which I watched dramas. Whenever I went to my grandmother's house, my younger aunt would sit with me and watch dramas. That day, we were both sitting together. It had gotten quite late. I thought about praying but got busy with the drama. Then my aunt said she was going to sleep. I also fell asleep quickly. I lay down on a cot in the sitting room. At some point in the night, my eyes suddenly opened. There was no sound, but there was a strange feeling as if someone was standing close. At first, I told myself it was an illusion, but the feeling would not go away. I mustered courage, raised my head, and looked toward the door. The door was closed, but through its cracks, faint light from the veranda was coming in. In that light, one part of the door was clearly visible, and another part was completely dark. Not because of shadow, as if something was standing there blocking the light. I stared at it for a few seconds, but then quickly covered my face with the sheet. My heart was beating fast. I started reciting prayers softly. After some time, I heard footsteps from the veranda, clear sounds, not like ordinary footsteps. It seemed as if someone was wearing heels and walking slowly on the floor. The sound went from one side to the other, then came back as if someone was packing. I covered my ears, closed my eyes, and just kept reciting. After some time, I do not know when sleep came. In the morning, when I told my aunt, she asked only one question. "Did you pray?" I said nothing. I just fell silent. I did not go there for a few weeks. Summer vacations came and I went again. This time, the same routine, we watched dramas, and I missed my prayer again. My aunt later went to sleep in the courtyard and I was left alone in the sitting room. I did not even notice when she left. After some time, my eyes opened. This time, it was not just a feeling but direct action. Someone grabbed my cot from below and shook it. I immediately sat up. My heart was pounding. I looked around, but there was no one in the room. The door was open and faint light was outside, but no one was visible. I told myself perhaps it was a dream or I was half asleep. I lay down again. A few minutes later, the latch of the door, which hung like a chain, began to rattle. The sound was so clear that I immediately sat up again. This time I was fully awake. I did nothing, just sat and listened. Then silence fell. I tried to lie down again, but sleep was now difficult. For the third time, my cot shook harder than before. At the same time, the room's light turned on by itself. This time, I was certainly frightened but not surprised. I understood what was happening. It was the same thing I had heard about. I thought to myself, I did not pray, so it is not letting me sleep. I immediately got up, went outside, and woke my aunt. I said directly, "Move my bed outside. I cannot sleep here." She did not ask anything. She just got up and placed my bed outside with everyone else. I lay down there and the rest of the night passed peacefully. After that incident, I understood one thing. Whether those things exist or not is a different debate. But one thing is clear, in some places, a person is not alone. And the second thing is that after that, I never intentionally slept there without praying. The purpose of telling this story is not to frighten, but to explain that not every unusual thing is harmful. But there are some principles, if you break them, a reaction will surely come. Even today, whenever I remember that night, the clearest moment is when a part of the door's light became completely dark, as if someone was standing there, just watching.